Good evening, everyone. This is Michael Blaze, your host, and the show you're watching tonight is The Arts, Culture, and Us. And tonight we have a very special guest for this first show, by the way, in the studio, of Miss Michelle A. Banks, actress, writer, producer, director, and award-winning writer, actress, director, and producer as well. Her most recent acting credits are national TV commercial Yahoo, the ABC 10/8, the Showtime series Soul Food, as well as recurring roles as Lynn's new boss on the very popular series Girlfriends, one of my favorites. And we're here tonight because you know how it is. They always say, what was that thing with Janet Jackson? What have you done lately? See, what was I supposed to do? I was supposed to go like this. Hello, welcome, how are you?
I'm wonderful.
And what is this one?
And that you're the same.
Oh,
Thank
me
you.
too. Cool. And I mean, you know, it seems to me I got an email, something about Tavis Smiley. Is that right?
A few weeks ago, before the show opened, it was a wonderful interview. He's a very nice guy, and I enjoyed the interview with him.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what it's like performing for deaf people as opposed to performing for the hearing or together. How does that work in your approach, in your artistic approach?
Really, I perform for both audiences, hearing and deaf. I don't have different approaches for deaf or hearing. It's the same way. Through my sign and through a hearing person's voice, voicing English, I approach it the same way. The deaf people want to sit back to watch and enjoy maybe a little bit more than hearing because they're so visual. You know, they're just visual on stage. See the language happening. But hearing people will watch it. Most people don't know sign language or the deaf culture or ASL. They just come to see the show and they're hearing it and watching it. So maybe hearing audience have a difficult time. But the deaf audience really just absorb all of the culture and the language that's happening. And some hearing people who have worked with the deaf community, who know the deaf culture, they can listen and watch at the same time also. It's various audience experiences. The same, I approach it the same, deaf or hearing.
Well, while we're discussing this, the deaf or hearing, I understand that there are a number of people who just do American Sign, like I'm about to take a course, who just do American Sign, and that's part of the culture also. How does that work?
That's good for that. Part of the culture also. Yes, American Sign Language is part of the culture, the deaf culture. American Sign Language is different from English. It has its own grammar structure, its own syntax, different way of expression. It's just different from English. Sign language is a language. It is a language and is a means of communication. Deaf culture, as the person grows up and listens to their language, you know, now from a deaf family, they know that the light, blinking, stomping the foot, that's part of deaf culture. There are different things that mean deaf culture of itself.
What was that with the stomping the foot?
That's calling a person.
Oh.
Calling a person to get their attention. That's deaf culture. Most deaf people like to talk in the kitchen. With the light, where there's plenty of bright light. That's part of deaf culture. Hearing maybe like to go into the living room. So there's various things. If you go to a party, you'll see the hearing people dancing. The deaf people, they're not dancing, they're talking. They're busy talking. That's the deaf culture.
Now, what was the question I asked earlier? Oh, do the deaf, some people are asking me, are the deaf allowed to drive?
people will ask questions, either silly questions or regular questions. The reason why people ask that question is because they don't know what deaf people are capable of. They're not conscious of the deaf culture community. They know nothing about it. The question is valid. Deaf people drive, do we? Yes, we do drive, same as hearing people drive. But I can only say that the deaf drive better than the hearing drivers. I just want you to know.
That's what I heard. I was really trying to get at that. I'm glad I was patient. That's what I heard. You know, and then one of our technicians here, Tyrone, mentioned, as a matter of fact, since there's no distraction like music and telephones, might be better drivers because your focus is better, which I had never really thought of. So maybe you are a better driver than me. We'll have to find out.
Deaf people tend to be more focused, and also, deaf people can drive, sign, and do the email all at the same time. It's true. When a hearing person rides with me, they say, pay attention, I know what's going on. I have to tell them. And then I'm on my text pager. You know, I can do it all. Yeah. Now, hearing people are always on the cell phone.
True.
And they're not paying attention.
And not at all. They're really not paying attention. Well, you know, let's talk a little bit also about the excerpt that we just watched, which I thought was really cool because it involved two deaf people who happened to me. I mean, I know it was a dream, but it was two deaf people that happened to me and had an in-depth conversation about a singer, Bob Marley. And so I asked you in the back about deaf people's music and so on. Tell me a little bit about what you said about your experience growing up around your father. And I want to point out also that Michelle had the benefit of having parents and siblings that learned American Sign Language. Is that correct? So I noticed in my studies a lot of deaf people do not have parents or siblings that actually understand how to communicate with you. So that was a benefit. So share with us one of your experiences growing up with your father, his love of music.
When my parents found out that I was deaf, they immediately sought help and resources and what to do with the deaf child. So they went to Gallaudet University. Fortunately, we lived near Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. So they received the help they sought, and they thought the best way to communicate with the deaf daughter was to learn sign language. So my parents took the course, and my brother also. So the three of them learned the language so they were able to communicate with me from the time I was very young. As I was growing up, my family really loved music. They always had the music on the radio, or, you know, albums and different things. My father always sat in the living room with his headsets on, listening to old school music, like the Four Tops, the Temptations, Love Supremes, the Emotions. So I'd come into the room and I'd tell him to sign to me the words, and my father would sign.
He's singing and signing.
And I just love to watch it. I just love that. So I feel I have music in me because I learned the rhythm from my father. To see him dancing and doing the signs, I felt what he was doing. So I was in a play for colored girls only. When suicide was enough. I was on stage, and there was an excerpt there about the Lady in Brown and Toussaint Louverture. Said he was a hero that fight the war, you know, in the 1700s in Haiti. So when I wrote my one-woman show, I wanted something similar to that scene. So I had an idea. So I did a scene about Bob Marley because that includes music also. And that was a great idea, so I added that to the scene. And I love reggae music. I love his music. And it's truthful and rebellious. So I thought that music was just part of who I am. People see me sign. The man that Azalea meets while I'm on vacation, you know, for in that scene from Bob Marley, they had challenges about that music issue. I showed them that I dance and everything, but it happens in real life. Some deaf. There is a discussion if music is part of their culture. For example, deaf grows up in a hearing family. They like music. They like that hip-hop. They go out and dance with their hearing friends. They love music. But a deaf that grows up in a strong deaf family, music doesn't happen at home. So they'll ask me, why do you have on music? It's deaf power. That's not part of deaf culture. And I have to tell them, hey, slow down. I let them know music is part of my culture, my family, my background, and how I was raised. So there's always a discussion. Till this day, music will always be part of my culture, no matter what.
This video raises questions, and I need for you to be extremely honest when answering them in the comments. And just so you know, I have 3 questions. Number 1, do you know someone who is deaf? Number 2, do you know sign language? Number 3, what did you learn from this video? Now please be honest in the comments when answering these questions. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.